Week 12, college football. And that means week 12 of the Gridiron Eve show. He's Mike Huessman. I'm John Vogel. Welcome in to another episode here. This wonderful Friday night, as we've had to adjust our recording schedule a little bit.
We have, yes.
So, unfortunately, I didn't change the graphic out. It says live still. This is technically a live stream, but it is not Friday night for us. When you guys will be viewing, it will be. And hopefully you'll be enjoying some great football that will be going on Friday night as well. I will be calling a high school game. Mike over there will be getting ready for the Tennessee-South Carolina game, which he will be attending down there in South Carolina. But how are you doing this night, man?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be back here as usual. Always a pleasure to talk about these games. And last week, kind of anticlimactic in a way for our picks. We only had the one challenge, and Coastal Carolina got it. Yes, Coastal Carolina got out to an early lead, and Southern Miss came back and tied it about right away. They had 17 points in a 3.5 minute time span on the clock. Coastal did end up winning the game, but Southern Miss covered, so that those 5 points went my way and gave me a 35-point lead, which is our biggest of the year. I'm happy to say that. We've got some bounces lately, and I think made some good picks lately too. But weird week, last week in college football in general, we had a lot of havoc in the Pac-12 after dark. We had Washington beat Oregon, which wasn't hugely shocking. Arizona beating UCLA, which I think did surprise a lot of people. And then some other noteworthy games. Notre Dame ekes it out against Navy in a game where they were up and allowed the midshipmen to claw back. Purdue beat Illinois to cause all kinds of havoc in the Big Ten West now, and we have no idea who's going to come out of there. And it should be noted, as John and I are both in SEC land now, the Vanderbilt Commodores get their first conference win since 2019.
Insane.
Kentucky Wildcats. Yes.
It's probably their first ranked win since maybe, does that have to go back to the James Franklin era?
I can't even think of a ranked win they had it with him, but I'm sure they did.
I'm pretty sure they had a couple with him. I can't remember off. Actually, you know what? Yeah. Keep talking. Let me see if I can't figure this out.
Neil Brown may have saved his job for at least one more week with West Virginia beating Oklahoma. And in the last week, I do not believe we had any FBS head coaches get fired. Jeff Scott 2 weeks ago for USF, I believe, is the most recent. And
I stood up for him at the beginning of the year, and that apparently was a mistake. So
yeah, I have no problem admitting my own failings and predictions I make that go wrong, and that is one you made that went wrong. You thought USF would definitely be better than they have been, and I would argue they should be doing better than they are, which is probably a good sign that it's time for the coach to go if you should be doing significantly better than your team is performing. We did pass over the Alabama hang on to beat Ole Miss in a game of two solid teams. TCU beat Texas 17-10, which was a big win for them to remain undefeated and keep the Horned Frogs playoff hopes alive, which I think for them it's pretty simple. You win out and you're in, but you drop one, you're not.
Let's go back to the Vanderbilt game real quick. The last time they defeated an SEC ranked opponent on the road was October 20th, 2007. When they took down 6th ranked South Carolina 17-6. That might be the last time they took down a ranked opponent, to be honest. Maybe.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
So that's right after Jay Cutler. It's a couple years after, 2 years after Jay Cutler, and 3 years before the James Franklin era. So that's pretty wild.
Are we talking Bobby Johnson era?
I believe we are. I think that's who the head coach was. And that was
probably was Bobby Johnson, yeah.
I'm trying to think who is it. Spurrier wasn't there yet, I don't think.
Yes, he was. He took over after Holtz, I think. So it had to be Spurrier. Yeah, 2007 was Spurrier, and they finished 6-6 that year.
That's insane.
So interestingly enough, they were 6-1, and then they lost to Vandy and did not win a game the rest of the year.
They were 6-1, ranked 6th in the country at the time. That is pretty darn insane, and Vandy destroyed that. So, do you think Kentucky wins a game the rest of the year?
Oh, let me delve deeper into. I don't know their schedule.
I'm pulling it up right now too.
They're not going to win today or Saturday. I can tell you that.
Yeah, they got Georgia, and then they will finish out against Louisville.
Who? Honestly, that's a coin flip game against Louisville. Mm-hmm. I do feel like they're going to be a 6-6 or 7-5 SEC team. So they're going to get one of the conference's lower bowl games, which may give them a favorable bowl matchup. So they'll have a decent chance to win that bowl game. But you also may be talking about playing a team who's surging. I think similar to like Purdue did last year when they finished strong and beat Tennessee, or a team from a different conference who finally gets it together. So I would bet Kentucky does win one of 3, but I don't know which one it'll be.
Yeah, it'll be tough for them. It'll be tough the next couple of weeks, that's for sure.
Yeah, well.
So our picks are going to be. I just realized they were not up. Now they are.
Okay.
Bam. We are rolling.
I was going to also say, John, I know we're so football centric here. Sometimes we gloss over, some more important things that happen off the field. And we obviously have the tragedy at Virginia, which we should, give a shout out to them, and say, obviously we're all thinking of them. I think the entire college football world is thinking of them. For me, there was no personal connections, but I know you had some relationship with Lavelle Davis. So anything you'd like to say about that or him, a guy who went through a lot of pitfalls in his career and faced the adversity only to be gunned down literally, terribly this last week.
Yeah, it's a thing that's really just, you can't wrap your head around it. You can't understand why somebody would do this, especially someone who had been in that locker room before, with that team. Maybe not the guys that were there, not many of the guys that were there now were there when he was, but to walk on a team and then years later walk in there and gun people down, it's just not something I can understand.
Yeah.
No, Lavelle was a good kid. He was a great kid, really sweet kid. Really, what's the word I'm looking for? You talked about the adversity, and he had a lot of it. He just kept battling through it. He battled through a torn ACL, I think it was last year. He had all the talent in the world too. Just a gifted 6'7" guy.
Yeah,
who just could stretch the field, and great receiver on the field. But he put so much work and so much effort into the game. I don't know if there was a harder worker on that team than him, so he'll be missed. We're going to miss him a lot. Just try to continue to move on. Obviously, prayers and everything extended to that entire Virginia community. University of Virginia has gone through something that no one really can ever understand.
Yeah. I think you said it well there. Like, this week, the things Tony Elliott and the entire community there has to go through is something all the trainings and preparations in the world couldn't prepare you for actually having it happen to you, I don't think.
Well, that's one of the things that he said too that I thought was really well said was talking about when you're preparing for this job, this is not one of those things that you prepare for because it's not fathomable. There is no training for this. So this is a new experience. I don't know if they've canceled. I'm pretty sure they're going to cancel the game tomorrow against Coastal.
Yes, their game against Coastal is canceled. They have not made a decision on Virginia Tech next week.
And as much as we love that rivalry, I'm all for, not playing it.
It's also one of those games where I think if a conference title berth was on the line or bowl eligibility was on the line, I think you'd have to play. But in this case, two teams with nothing to play for, I don't know that they go ahead with it.
I hope they don't. As beautiful as that rivalry is this just something that supersedes football?
I won't go so far to say I hope they don't. I hope the Virginia players get to do what they want to do. If they want to play, I hope they do that.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't want to play, then I hope they are allowed to grieve in whatever way they feel fit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that hopefully they can remember. I was going to say they'll obviously remember the 3 teammates they lost, but I hope something can be done to honor them, and I'm sure it will. I know the entire ACC is going to wear helmet decals.
Juan Thornhill has some really, really awesome cleats this week that he's wearing with the Kansas City Chiefs as well.
I'll have to check those out. Yeah.
So with our prayers and everything that we can extend, all the support, anything we can to the Virginia community, let's go ahead and switch back over to football. Mike, your first pick, and after all the anti-Tennessee hate, what do you have?
Oh, I'm all about the Blue Raiders this week. Middle Tennessee +6 against Florida Atlantic. That game is in Murfreesboro, and I like Middle Tennessee. Cade Cunningham's a pretty good QB. They are spreading the ball around well on offense, and I like how they match up against Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic basically only runs the ball. Middle Tennessee's run D is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Middle Tennessee's pass D isn't as good, but they're very good at not allowing big plays. That's how Florida Atlantic can hurt you in the pass game, because Perry doesn't, his accuracy is not great. What they can do is off of the run game, take those deep shots sometimes. I think Middle can neutralize that, and I think Stockstill can lead them to a W, or at least cover those points on Saturday. So I'm going.
Yeah, we've seen MTSU stretch the field before. They did it really well against Miami. They went on the road to do that too. I like MTSU in this one too, and for the reasons that you listed, but also we've seen them do a lot of different things. They're playing for bowl eligibility.
Yeah. Florida
Atlantic is also. I understand that too, but they've
been the winner of this game will be bowl eligible on Saturday.
They're going. FAU's been so up and down this year. Yeah. I like and MTSU really too, but I think FAU's been more inconsistent, and I do like MTSU. I'm not going to challenge you on that.
Okay. What's your first pick, John?
So I was shocked when I saw this line, and this is almost sacrilegious considering all the things I've said about Army, but UConn +9.5 over Army. I am shocked. UConn right now has been it's been an outstanding team the last 4 or 5 weeks specifically.
Yeah.
Army has not. Army has a great defense, which, that's one of the things too. Their team that has really stood up. Even these games that their offense isn't moving the ball well, their defense is keeping them in the games. Air Force a couple weeks ago, 13-7. This is one of those teams that it's like if they're playing, you can probably bet the under very safely. But UConn at +9.5 against this team. I understand the defense is good, but UConn's been good enough on offense to run the ball, throw when they have to, but control the game with the run. Their defense, Jackson Mitchell, has been outstanding this year. Jackson Mitchell is probably playing himself into the Senior Bowl. I'll be shocked if he doesn't go there. Like he's just been another level of great. Like it's just every time you turn on UConn, especially the last 4 or 5 weeks, he's making them play. Whether it's an interception, whether it's a big sack, whether it's a fumble recovery for a touchdown, it doesn't matter. He's doing everything. Mm-hmm. And so I like UConn. I think that they have a really good chance to win this straight up. I'm not sure why the line's this far, but I also like UConn could because.
So I think part of why the line is so big is that UConn is in an absolute prime spot for a letdown after winning their Super Bowl last week, the biggest game they've had in a while, going to a team where it's really tough to prepare to play the triple option. You're not used to it. And a lot of things I think are going against UConn going into this game. And I certainly like Army. However, I will almost never pick a service academy as more than one possession favorites. The way they play is not conducive to covering by more than 7.5 points. So had it been less, I might have went after this one, but I'm not going to touch Army at more than a touchdown favorites if you're going against them.
Oh, yeah. And I just realized I have a typo in there because I've got UConn over Rutgers and Army. So
yeah, no, that's all right. It's Army.
There we go. Now we're good.
Yeah. Well, I'll move on to my second game, though, while you're getting that up. And I don't know if it's second on that list, but we have the big battle of the Angelinos this week, UCLA, USC, and I'm liking the Bruins to cover 5.5 off of their absolutely terrible performance against Arizona last week. They are 5-2 in the conference now. You know, their losses are to Oregon and then Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
USC just has the one conference loss. They're another team who may control their own destiny to the playoffs. Some people might disagree with me. I think they probably do, but I think this is a big game for UCLA. You know, they're going to want to really show up after last week playing terrible, but also I typically don't make as much of rivalries as a lot of people do, but I'm going to in this case because these UCLA guys, they're an old veteran team. We got a lot of guys in their 4th, 5th, some even in their 6th year, and they've been with Chip the whole way. And they're going to look over at USC and view them as a bunch of mercenaries that have just come in for this year to win games off of the back of NILs and funding. So I like the Bruins in this one. Neither defense in this game is great. We've accepted that. But I think USC losing Travis Dye for the year is going to make a bigger impact than a lot of people think. So for that reason, I like the Bruins to cover in this one at 5.5. This is one I thought you might challenge going in, but are you going to challenge this?
So I do agree with the point that you made that USC controls their own destiny. And everything in me right now screaming, don't challenge this. Because for all the points that you just listed, they're all great points, right? Yeah. We've seen this team before struggle. USC struggled a couple weeks ago against Cal. That was a game they should not have been struggling with there at the end. Cal scored a lot of points on them after being shut out. Pretty much I think they were 10 or 17 points going into the 4th quarter, and they came out 35 or whatever. So we know that the defense can be atrocious for USC, especially late in games. Great point about Travis Dye too. But here's the thing. I'm down 35 points right now, and I need a miracle. And so despite everything screaming within me, this is not the game to challenge. This is another one. This will give you 40. I have to challenge it. I'm down 35 points.
That's fair. Yeah.
And so my faith is going to have to go into Lincoln Riley and this group of mercenaries and one of the best quarterbacks in the country in why can't I think of his name right now?
Caleb Williams. Yeah. And I would say
Sam Williams. I was like, that's not it.
Yeah. Oh God, he has to be top. For me, we see Stroud and Hooker getting a lot of the publicity. Williams and May have probably been the 2 best so far. Mm-hmm. Those 2 both have a lot going for them.
And the reason that we're not really talking about those guys right now, unfortunately, is because they're not draft eligible. May won't be eligible till 2025, if I'm remembering correctly. And Williams is not eligible until 2024.
Yes.
So we're talking about Stroud and Hooker because those are the guys that are draft eligible. They're getting all that hype.
I also think part of it is the SEC and in Ohio State. I mean, we're media centric on some of those major programs like that. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's fair.
That could be part of it too.
But yeah, so Lincoln Riley.
I think the draft is a really good point too about why we're not hearing about him as much.
Lincoln Riley has to win this game. If they want to stay in the playoff race, they have to win this game. Yeah. They have to win next week against Notre Dame. Yeah. And then they have to win the Pac-12 championship. these guys are going to be fired up for that because this is a program that we were not talking about potentially in the playoff, I don't think, at the beginning of the year.
And he was also a guy similar to Brian Kelly. They weren't brought in to win 8 or 9 games. They were brought in to win the conference title and be competing for the playoffs. I mean, the expectations were through the roof for those guys, but they knew that moving. You took the astronomical paychecks to do exactly what you're doing so far. And I get you challenging it. It's one of those, I don't know what's going to happen.
It could literally go either way.
It could. Yeah. It really could. But so I'm glad we have one challenge so far. What's your next game, John? Is it the Rutgers one?
Okay. So I like Penn State, 19.5 over Rutgers.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say something as a Tennessee fan. Remember when the media told us that it was a mistake to not hire Greg Schiano at Tennessee? Do you remember that?
I was firmly against it. He would have been a better hire than what people said, or the people and then Jeremy Pruitt too. Yeah,
I understand that Pruitt didn't work out, and so it looked stupid for a while. But what has Rutgers done this year?
They haven't done much. I think there's nuances to that discussion, though.
There is, but
what should they be doing?
They're 4-6.
They are 4-6, and 3 of those wins are, 3 of their 4 wins are against FBS teams. I wouldn't necessarily say they're underperforming to what we expected.
I guess my point was
lighting the world on.
Tennessee and Rutgers were in similar positions at that time.
That's a loaded one for me too. I would have said Tennessee was a far more talented roster. Granted, expectations were higher there too. So you took a better roster, but you were expected to produce more, as Heupel has been doing. Yeah.
And Heupel's been great. I'm looking in hindsight going, we didn't want Greg Schiano. I understand the reason why they did it was kind of, a lot of the talking heads at Tennessee that were against it was kind of low. And Tennessee is known for being low. And why sometimes it's very difficult to be a Tennessee fan, especially when you find out that Stetson Bennett's number got leaked before the big game and Tennessee fans spent the entire night calling him. That was pretty damn low. So, but no, I just want to say that Schiano is not a guy that, he doesn't have this roster competing against the top teams in the Big Ten. He doesn't. They haven't been competitive in these big games. They haven't covered these spreads. And I like Penn State covering because their defense is great. They're moving the ball against these types of opponents. I think this is like a 45-17 type game, a lot like we've seen Penn State putting up, and cover easy.
It's funny. I talked to a friend of the show, Thor Nystrom, today, and we talked about this game. And I said, hey, John's picking this one, Penn State, and this is the spread. And right away I said, there's no way I'm touching it. But this is probably one of those classic Greg Schiano cover games where their O-line plays great, they grind it out, and they lose by 14 points, which would cover. But I'm not touching this one because of how bad that QB play and some of their O-line is at times.
They've had to play Johnny Langan at QB a lot this year.
Yeah,
he's an H-back.
This is one of those games, I think, like we're going to see with Minnesota, Iowa later on in the show, the spread is probably exactly where it should be. And I don't want to touch those games where the spread's where it should be because you have a 50-50 chance, and I don't like that.
Let's go ahead and move into your third game here, man. What do you got for us?
Kansas State covering 7.5 against almost heaven West Virginia. I think despite beating Oklahoma last week, we finally see West Virginia's 7th loss of the year, which some people are saying will trigger Neil Brown getting fired. Now, we're hearing it from administration that won't be the case. West Virginia did fire their athletic director this week.
Mm-hmm.
And the president did say Neil Brown will not be fired in the coming weeks. However, January 1st, his buyout does drop by over $3 million. So maybe it happens in early January. But Kansas State is as fundamentally technically sound as anybody in the country. Up front, they're doing great things. They're not making mistakes. And the only games they're turning the ball over are those that they end up losing, which hasn't been much. So with, a healthy QB room, even if Martinez doesn't play, Walker played pretty well. But Deuce Vaughn back, that defense is pretty salty. I like Kansas State to get a win here. And I also, further down the road, I think Chris Kleiman is going to be a guy who's in talks for some bigger jobs and may leave for those. So I like the 15th ranked Wildcats to go to Morgantown and pick up win number 8.
Yeah, I can't challenge this one. Yeah. Kansas State has been very explosive. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. Will Howard has been great this year. Adrian Martinez has been great this year. They have Deuce Vaughn, and he's been back and healthy and playing pretty well. He's one of the best running backs in the country.
Yeah, I know I know he went over 1,000 yards the last game he played. So that's impressive for anybody.
Yeah, especially when you're 5'6" and $175 soaking wet.
I know.
I mean, that's just really impressive. He's legit the reincarnation of Darren Sproles. That's where we're at with them. I like that too. I don't think West Virginia is going to be able to challenge this one. Granted, I didn't think they were going to challenge Oklahoma last week either, but no, it's true. I think that Kansas State covers this one pretty handedly.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
So let's go back to the Big Ten.
Okay.
I like Iowa plus 2.5 over Minnesota. Big game.
Yeah. I'm from Minnesota. We all know that. And I don't want to say everybody feels the way I do. It's probably split 50-50. But for me, the battle for Floyd or Rosedale is the biggest game of the year. For me, Minnesota-Iowa was bigger than Minnesota-Wisconsin, which they actually played during rivalry week. Both big rivalry games. But getting Iowa was always, for me, that was the game. And I was prepared to challenge you on this. However, I don't think Tanner Morgan is going to play. And I'm not taking the Gophers with Kaliakmanis at QB to cover. It will be this game might be over in 1 hour and 20 minutes from kickoff to finish. We are seeing 2 poor QBs. With Chris Ottman-Bell out for Minnesota, there are not many receiving cores worse than these 2 teams in the P5. Iowa's probably the worst receiving core in the P5. Minnesota without Ottman-Bell's not far behind. So we're going to see a lot of runs, some play action dump offs to the tight ends, and it's going to be a quick one, I think.
I think Iowa's defense is better. I just think that Iowa's defense is much better. Yeah, this is a huge game, because both of these teams right now are competing for that division title.
Yes.
So whoever wins this or whoever loses this is virtually eliminated.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are. Even without Morgan, I think Minnesota's offense is still better than Iowa's, but Iowa's defense is one of the best in the country. So with the backup QB, I'm not challenging this one from Minnesota's point of view.
Actually, did you see that meme where it's Thor or Thanos talking to his daughter Gamora, but they've got the Iowa State logo over Thanos' head.
I haven't seen
They're going. So you beat Iowa? And they said yes. What did it cost? We became Iowa. Yeah, and that's kind of like that's exactly what it's been, right? No, their defense is so much better. I think, like you said, all those reasons. Minnesota's missing a few key players on offense that's going to hurt the offense against this defense. That's just too much. The defense might win the game for Iowa, but I like them. I like them winning straight up. But if I got 2.5 points, I'll take it.
That's fair. Yeah, I can't debate that one. For me, it's just the margins are too. Like I said before, that spread's probably exactly what it should be. So I'm not going to touch it. Should I go on to my next game, John?
Yeah, let's go. So we're going back to the Big 12, right?
Yep. And I like the Horned Frogs' luck to run out this weekend. I think Baylor's plus 2.5, and I think at home in Waco, the Bears get it done. This is an underrated rivalry. A lot of people around the country don't realize that this is an intense one for these two teams. And TCU has had a great run so far. Hats off to them. They've also been fortunate in some senses, though. And this is just one of those matchups for them. The way Baylor plays, I think they match up well. Shapen's going to play. Reese is a pretty good running back, and I Baylor's D's decent, not better than average. They're all right, but there's just something in me that likes Baylor in this one. So it's one I maybe going out on a limb more than I like to, but I'm going to go with Baylor in this one plus 2.5 hosting TCU.
Yeah, it's interesting because I missed this pick initially.
Yeah.
And I submitted this as one of my picks, but the other way. So it's obviously being challenged.
I saw that, yeah.
Yep, so we're going to go with the challenge here. And, I know that Baylor, we came in the year, you loved Baylor when we came into the year. In fact, I
thought Baylor was going to be one of the two best teams in the conference.
And I pointed out at the time, I said their quarterback play is not where it needs to be. And that's been their issue this year. That's why they haven't been as competitive. Their quarterback play has not really been there. They've had to lean on their defense. That's a very difficult thing to do in the Big 12, especially
absolutely. Yeah.
We had defense for a few years there in the Big 12, and it looked like, oh, okay, maybe they actually care about playing defense again over here. Not this year.
No.
Everybody's back to scoring a ton of points. Everybody just runs. They run the score up. That's what everybody does over there. They're putting up giant points, and so. This whole
probably the best defense in the conference is Kansas State. They're the only team that everybody's not just blowing out.
Yeah. They've been the toughest team.
And I don't know. Texas isn't allowing a ton of points, but I don't know that their D's great.
And that's the thing.
Some games they have too. They're a weird one.
TCU just pulled off a pretty big win last week against Texas. They held Texas to 10 points with Quinn Ewers. Nobody done that yet.
No.
Nobody done that yet. In fact, I don't think even Alabama did that. Didn't Texas have 14 when Quinn Ewers left the game?
I thought it was 10 because I thought they got a field goal one of those drives, but it may have been
maybe
14.
It was. It might have been 10. It might have been. But point is,
but in a quarter and a half, so they clearly
nobody's done that yet, and so that's a big thing for TCU to have pulled that off. That's awesome. I've doubted them this season, right? I've bet against them. I've put my I think that they're not going to cover. I picked them against them with Kansas State. They rolled Kansas State. Granted, there were some things that happened that game that helped them. But still, they rolled Kansas State.
And so, like you said, me being high on Baylor, early in the year, picking Baylor bit me in the ass a few times. But
I'm going TCU. I think this defense is pretty darn good compared to the rest of the conference. I mean, Dylan Horton's having a great year. He just got a Senior Bowl invite.
Oh, good for him. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yep, he's going to go to the Senior Bowl, so that's good for him. He'll probably be a 3rd, 4th round pick. They've got a really nice secondary that's played pretty well this year as well at times. Okay. And so I like all that. And then I like Max Duggan. Max Duggan is one of the coolest stories in America right now, bro.
Yeah. He is.
This guy probably shouldn't have ever played football again. And yet here he is with a 10-0 team, primed and positioned to control their destiny in the playoff. Do I think they make it there? No. I think that they probably lose the Big 12 championship. But
who do they play next week? I don't even know.
I don't remember either.
Iowa State. No.
It was an unranked opponent that was toward the bottom, if I'm recalling correctly, because TCU already rolled Kansas. Did they not? Or is it Kansas?
No, they beat Kansas. No, they beat them by one possession. That was a close game actually against Kansas.
Yeah. That's right. 41-34.
It is Iowa State. Yeah.
Okay. So I think they're going to get through Iowa State. I think that they'll get through this
Agree.
week.
Yeah.
And I think that whoever ends up playing them in the Big 12 championship, it's a rematch. They're going to get beat.
Good chance it's going to be Kansas State again, a team who probably would have beat them if they didn't have all those injuries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I like them winning this one. So I'm going to challenge that.
That's fair. So we got 2 challenges so far. I'm on UCLA plus 5.5 against USC, and I'm on Baylor plus 2.5 against TCU.
Mm-hmm. So I like Oregon going to the West Coast here, 1.5 underdogs to Utah. Okay. I understand Utah is the only team that has beat USC this year. I understand that. I also understand that Utah is going to be missing. The last few weeks they've missed their tight end, their starting tight end. I believe it's Dalton Kincaid, who is probably on his way to an All-American season. I also understand that Oregon's coming off of a tight loss against Washington. All of those things considered, this is a bounce-back game for Oregon. I think they win straight out. Utah's defense has been pretty good for the most part, but Bo Nix is playing right now at another level. I put my faith in Bo Nix a few weeks ago against UCLA. You told me I was a moron. And how did that come out?
Which game was that?
That was the UCLA-Oregon game.
Oh, that did not turn out well for me.
Yeah, yes. Exactly.
I don't think moron was the term I used. I wouldn't be that.
No. I am over exaggerating a little bit, but you said it was not wise to put faith in Bo Nix, and
I have said that many times. Yes,
I'm doing it again because this man in this system going to Oregon has been the best thing for him. Now, if you remember a couple of years ago, Jordan Palmer worked with Bo Nix in the offseason, and Jordan Palmer said that this guy would be the first overall pick of the 2022 NFL draft. Do you remember that?
I do remember him saying that, yes.
And we all laughed at him, like, what on earth are you talking about? Well, he's not going to be the first overall pick. I don't think anybody is thinking that. But we're seeing a little bit of what he was talking about this year, right? He's cleaned up so many different things with what he does, throwing the football. I like he's been so much fun as a runner too. Defenses they really struggle to prepare for him. That Washington game, very close loss. The only bad game he's had was against the number 1 team in the country, and that was the first game of the year. You're breaking into a new offense and getting familiar with your teammates. That was a good one to get familiar with because now they're clicking on all cylinders. I like them here. Utah's offense is not as explosive as Washington's. And I don't think they're going to be able to score as many points.
Challenge. I like Utah in this one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I had to dig deep on Twitter for this one and do some searching.
Okay.
But I am led to believe Bo Nix is not healthy in this one, which changes the dynamic.
It does change the dynamic. I am getting Utah on Twitter now.
So I'm taking Utah minus 1.5 to cover this one.
Wow. Hang on. I'm looking this up. Keep talking.
Please. So Cam Rising, good player. Tavion Thomas, good running back. Utah is just a solid football team. They run the ball really well, and they play good run defense. They did lose to UCLA earlier, and we remember the season opening loss they had to the Gators.
Wait a second. Bo Nix is out?
Oh, that is fantastic to hear. Challenge is in. Cannot be reversed.
So Oregon wide receiver Chris Hudson seems to indicate Bo Nix won't play this weekend. Obviously, Bo is down, so it's a next man up. Can't wait to see Ty Thompson out there. We're ready to go.
And Hudson is the source that I got that info from as well. So
I don't know if it's a smokescreen or not.
I don't either, but I like it enough where I'm going to go with Utah. And I didn't challenge any of your games last week.
No, you didn't.
I felt like let's put this one on the table.
Okay. Now I am a little worried about this one now because I wish I had realized that Bo Nix was going to be out. That's what I get.
I would be worried if I was you too. Yes.
That's what I get for not extensively researching. But making a lot of these picks is a knee-jerk kind of thing. But
certainly, always
Thompson,
is. Yeah,
I want to know a little bit if I'm thinking this is the same guy.
Oh, 5-star recruit, like heralded recruit.
Yeah. He's a huge recruit. Yeah. Like this is a guy that wasn't he committed to Tennessee at one point?
He certainly may have been. I
want to say he was. And he ended up bailing.
Okay.
When Jeremy Pruitt came through.
I know he's a Phoenix area guy. But I don't know in terms of his other. Hold on, I'm loading his recruiting profile. This will tell me. It doesn't say he was ever committed there, but they are listed as an offer.
Yeah, I knew Tennessee went after him. I thought maybe he was committed at one point.
Okay.
But yeah, no, anyways. Thompson, he's a good dude. So maybe the offense is still the same. Maybe. I guess we're gonna find out. I am worried about it now.
Yeah, that's reasonable. And that was one of your games. So my game is my last game next.
Yeah, your last game is next year, man.
Honestly, I gotta wait till it comes across the ticker. Oh no, I can check it here.
Oh no, it's Vandy. I'll just tell you that right
now. Yeah. The Commodores, 14.5-point dogs against the Gators. It's mostly because as longtime regular viewers of the show know, I love every team from the Volunteer State. So I had to pick Middle Tennessee State, and then I had to pick Commodores. 14.5 is a lot to dog them on against a Florida team that is a little above average. They're getting better with Napier. I think they will continue to get better. But Vandy also matches up decent against them. And the way they run the ball, Florida's D-line is not very good right now. They're not stopping the run all that well. I would absolutely love it if the Commodores got conference win number 2. I don't see that happening. But I do think they can muck things up enough and keep it to 14 or fewer points and cover that line. I also told friend of the show, Thor Nystrom, I would pick this game for the sheer fact of challenging it for you would mean going against Vandy to put you in a moral conundrum and make you chase points when I have the lead. So he was all for that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he was. And as soon as I saw this pick, when you sent this through, that was the first thing that went through. I knew exactly what you were doing.
Yeah, because that is 100% what I was doing.
Because as people who really viewed this show all year understand, Mike does not love Tennessee. Mike hates Tennessee with a flaming passion.
I'm indifferent. I'm indifferent on any state. I take these things on a team-by-team basis.
No, you hate. Because guess what happened? You went against every Tennessee team in 1 week, and you lost every single one of them because I challenged every single one of them.
I've not lost many since then either.
Mm-hmm. No, you have. This is also true. This is when you woke up and you're like, oh, baby, I do hate Tennessee. Yeah, I need to fix this bias.
I actually can put a caveat there. I do hate one thing about Tennessee. I do think Ryan Silverfield may be the worst FBS coach in the country. He's awful. So I'm not about the Memphis coaching staff. He got a pretty good situation from Norvell, and he's not done good. They should perennially be a top 5 G5 team, and they're not very good.
Well, they're also never mind. We're not going to get into Memphis stuff now. Memphis is like that forgotten stepchild of Tennessee, really.
But where they're at, they should be like Houston, UCF, and so on, where you have the resources and recruiting area of a lot of P5 schools. They should be doing better than they are. But that anti-Ryan Silverfield tangent can be for another day. But do you like the Commodores with me, or are you challenging it going with the Gators?
I'm challenging.
Oh, my.
Look,
oh boy.
Vanderbilt had a great game.
against Kentucky. There's no doubt. I am down 35 points. I am chasing points. You did put me in this moral conundrum.
You're just anti-Tennessee, John. That's why you're doing this.
Yeah, anti-Tennessee. I bleed orange, not gold. Okay,
just like you're.
That's the difference. This is not orange. This is gold.
You also hate America for picking UConn earlier in the day,
I really
too.
do. I really hate it. I hate the Army too. I'm getting out, so fuck them anyways. No, I think that it is an interesting matchup because Antonio Richardson has been, 50-50 this year. He's been on, he's been off. When he's on, he's great. He's running the ball. I just don't know if Vanderbilt has the defense to slow him down.
That
you can relay on him.
Yeah.
Between him and ETN, Trevor Etienne, Travis's brother.
Yep, this one is Trevor. Yeah,
these guys are fast, and I'm not sure that Vanderbilt has the team speed on defense to keep up with them. They have a couple guys. Kane Patterson transferred in from Clemson. He's kind of been a spot linebacker. He's been good. Anthony Orgy has been good as well. Love that name, by the way, Orgy. You know what I'm saying? Like that I love that name. It's that belongs on East West College Bowl. So I like Florida actually covering this. I understand Mike Wright is playing quarterback right now for Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
he's a lot like Anthony Richardson without the power, right? So he's a little bit more. He's got better speed.
Probably a fair comparison. Yeah,
they're very similar in their playing styles. He's not as great of a passer as Richardson is either, which is saying a lot about
which is not saying that's wild comparison, but it's true. Yeah.
But no, I think as runners, Richardson, they're very similar runners. He's the better. He's just more. He's got more speed than Richardson does. Richardson has more power.
That's true. Yeah.
So I understand. I'm having to go against Vanderbilt and having to go against a good Shepherd, who's had a great year down there. Will Shepherd at wide receiver. I'm still probably leading the SEC in receiving touchdowns. Because I know he had another one last week to win the game from Mike Wright, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
And then Davis has been a good running back for them too. But
Ray Davis is a future NFL player.
Yeah, he really is. But I like Florida just overall. Florida having more speed to run up more points, and then at some point Vanderbilt will check out.
Yeah.
So that's 4 challenges, 20 points on the line now. There we go.
And it's going to stay 4 because I'm not challenging your last game.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Oh, okay.
But let's go to that game, John.
Yeah, so let's go back into the Big 12 here for a little bit. Yeah. Oklahoma State is 7.5-point underdogs to Oklahoma. Yeah. I understand this is the Bedlam game. I love rivalries. I understand that rivalries typically make things very unpredictable, as I've said many times on the show, because I unlike you, I'm a big rivalry person. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm making fun of you. So
no, it's not that I don't like them. They're fun to watch. I don't think the point spread should fluctuate as much during those games is maybe how I should have prefaced that.
Yeah, there's only a few that really should. The Iron Bowl and the game are probably the only two that you fluctuate points for, because those are the 2 games. It's the last game of the year. You throw everything you knew from the previous year out the window and you just watch this game. So anyways, I like Oklahoma State on this one. I understand they've struggled a good bit this year with a bunch of different things. But Oklahoma is just struggling just as much, if not more, right? Oklahoma is a team that we kind of came into talking about potentially winning the Big 12. That didn't happen. That obviously it's been a big letdown year for them. This is a big game. It's in Norman. They're not going to Oklahoma State for this one, and that's probably why Oklahoma is favored as much as they are. I just like this being a field goal game. I'm not sure who wins. I think I picked Oklahoma State to win regardless when I went through my pick'ems this week on ESPN.
And I definitely like to pause you there. For me, it came down to if Spencer Sanders is going to play. He's telling us he is, and I'm not going to pick against them if he's playing in a spread like that when they're underdogs to an Oklahoma team who is limping to the finish line. They lost to West Virginia when, they've had Gabriel out. They haven't been able to find a backup QB. Neither is Oklahoma State. But with Sanders back, I think that gives him a huge advantage. So, I like the Cowboys in this one with you.
Yep. So also real quick to bring this up because you are a huge FCS fan. And so this is one of the games that we have to talk about this week, right?
Yeah.
Montana State is playing Montana. This is such a big FCS game that this was actually on the ESPN Pick'em. And so when I saw this, I was like, well, we have to talk about this one because this is a big game.
I did last week. I did apply for a job at Montana State University too.
Ooh, what spill? You gonna spill the details, or we're gonna talk after the show?
So I'm in my last year of my PhD program in special ed at the University of South Carolina. So I am ABD, which is all but dissertation. So I'm done with coursework. Only have dissertation left. So it's now appropriate for me to look for faculty and postdoctoral jobs for next school year. So I interviewed another SEC institution. I interviewed with the Hogs, Arkansas Monday. Marshall is next week I interview with, and then waiting to hear back from Montana State, Appalachian State, and BYU.
Very nice.
Yeah, so we will see what happens. But you're right, we do have a big FCS matchup this week, and I believe Montana State is ranked second, and Montana is, I want to say, fourth or fifth, but they're both up there, as is the norm with those two.
Mm-hmm. Now, Montana State last year made a run and ended up getting blown out by North Dakota State for the FCS championship.
Correct. Yes. So they, interestingly enough, they had their QB got hurt the last regular season game of the year.
Yeah.
So they put in a true freshman QB first round of the playoffs, took them to the title game, and that guy's the starter this year.
Yep. And Montana has a loaded roster.
Yeah.
In terms of
they do
FCS, NFL talent type stuff. It is a loaded roster. And we're looking at Justin Ford. We're giving him a really big look at corner.
Okay.
They've got a couple tight ends as well that are pretty good. The running back we're looking at as well. I think there's a linebacker and maybe a defensive lineman.
Okay.
This is a loaded team in terms of NFL talent.
I know they have a bunch of guys too who utilize the COVID year, so they have a lot of older guys on that roster too.
And Montana State lost those guys this past year. They all went, and two of them got drafted. Daniel Hardy in the 6th or 7th round to the Rams, and then Derek Anderson, I think was his name, right? Troy Anderson, who went in the 3rd round. So
it's escaping me.
It was Troy Anderson. That was his name. So this is Montana State's been great this year, obviously. There's a few guys we're looking at.
They've been number 2 most of the year after. South Dakota State has been ranked number 1.
Yeah, because North Dakota State dropped a game early after the
South Dakota State.
Right.
Well, they lost to Arizona, and then South Dakota State lost to Iowa. Mm-hmm. But then in conference play in the Missouri Valley, South Dakota State beat North Dakota State. They've been ranked number 1 ever since, and Montana State is ranked 2. South Dakota State, ranked number 1, is on a bye. Their bye is this weekend, and North Dakota State has North Dakota, so we got the rivalry up there on the Red River. So, that game is this weekend as well.
But so this is obviously not going to count toward any spread or anything, but who do you think wins Montana State, Montana?
Montana State.
Oh, see, I went Montana.
Okay.
I did go Montana.
Yeah.
I understand it's on the road and everything, but wouldn't that be a big game?
Yeah. So this is kind of tangent to that, but Montana State's head coach, Brent Vegan, he was a long-time North Dakota State offensive coordinator. He's an alumni there, and then he went with Craig Bowl to Wyoming, then left Wyoming to go be the head coach at Montana State.
That makes sense.
So there's that tie-in there, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Big tie-in right there. Mm-hmm. That's about all the time we've got on the show tonight, man. So any last words that you have for our listeners?
We have our 4 challenges. To recap that, I have UCLA plus 5.5. John has USC. Baylor plus 2.5. John has TCU. Utah minus 1.5. John has the Ducks. And I have Vandy plus 14.5. And John is going with the Gators.
Mm-hmm. As much as that pains me.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it does. We do. You will be seeing this Friday, but we are actually recording Thursday. I'm actually excited to watch our Thursday night game. SMU at Tulane could be a fun one for us.
Yeah, I'll be watching it. We will be scouting. Tulane has one of the best running backs, one of my favorite running backs to watch. I talked about this last week.
You talked about Spears. Yeah.
Oh my God. Just every time I watch this guy, just like him so much more. And so it's going to be great to see them against SMU. SMU's had some games, so they put up some crazy points, and I'm sure they won tonight too on that. But anyways, thanks for tuning in to week 12 of Gridiron Eve. You can follow him on Twitter at Huessman CFB. I'm on Twitter at Draft Vogel. You can follow the show at Gridiron Eve. And this will conclude our week 12 episode. He's Mike, and I'm John. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the support. And we will be back at this again next week, hopefully with a 15-point advantage.